Hi, I'm John from Just Whisky. If you like today's show, please give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. And consider becoming a Patreon with the link in the description below. And thanks for all the new subscribers that are slowly trickling in to enjoy my whiskey journey. And today, you notice there is no dram on deck. There is no bottle. Today, we are going to be talking about recent auction prices and the secondary market and flipping. There was a recent spirits auction by Skinner Auctions out of Marlborough, Massachusetts. That auction ended last April 21st, 2022, and today is April 25th, 2022, and I'm going to be talking about some of the prices that were realized for some of the bottles that I discussed in my previous review about Lagavulin 16. So they're going to be talking about some Ardbeg, some Daftmill, and Springbank, and the like. But first, I just wanted to talk about the secondary market and flipping. Personally, I've never flipped a bottle, and although I hear about secondary market all the time and people flipping on the secondary market, I am ignorant and completely unaware of specifically where these markets are. On a personal note, if someone wants to flip a bottle here or there, if you're a whiskey enthusiast and a hobbyist, and you buy a couple of bottles and you want to flip one to somebody that you know or whatever, personally, I have no problem with that. The only issue I think I have with whether it's Scotch or any kind of spirits, but bourbons, right? Is the people that are in it for the big business, the kingpins, that and again, I hear about it all the time, but specifically I don't know where these transactions take place. But there's certainly people out there hoarding Springbanks and allocated bourbons and buying them off the shelves, and that just drives up demand, which drives up price. Unfortunately, as much as we want to moan and groan about it, it's kind of like a new reality, and so it's unfortunate, but that's the way it is, I guess. And then as far as secondary markets, I know Facebook used to have secondary markets on there, but my understanding is as soon as they become active, Facebook takes these sites down. So I don't really know where this secondary market is. In reference to auctions, obviously that's considered a secondary market, and that's a different animal, because auctions usually don't offer an immediate turnaround. Something like Skinner, they have, I think, maybe 4 spirit auctions a year. Unless you catch the timing just right, it's really not a flipping site per se. It's kind of like you hold on to some bottles for a length of time and then, put them up for auction. I'm just going to adjust the camera a little bit. But also, too, with auctions, there are fees involved. If you're a seller, you're going to pay upwards to 30% to sell your bottle of whatever it is. And then on top of that, there are other fees, photography fees and setup fees that these auction houses charge you. So in effect, a seller can pay upwards to 32%, right off the top. So that really takes a big chunk of whatever you're selling. And then on the buying end, you're going to pay usually a 10% buyer's premium on top of whatever the final realized price is. But anyway, in some cases, and in many cases, on auction sites, you can actually get a lot of bargains, and you can actually buy below retail in many instances. In some instances, it's just the opposite, and the price is highly inflated. So I'm going to go over some spirits that were in the recent auction and what they realized. There was a Redbreast 27, batch 1. Okay, that retails for $450 to $500. That ended up selling for $650. Okay. Then there was some Ardbeg committee releases. Okay, the Ardbeg, the one with the pirate on there, the Mickey Heads retirement celebration bottle. That one sold for $250. The Ardbeg Fermutation sold for $250. There was a 2-bottle lot, one for the Ardbeg Scotch committee release and the Ardbeg Black committee release. So those 2 bottles combined realized $275. Okay, so if you itemize that, that's not too bad. That's pretty close to retail, really. Then there was a bottle of Ardbeg Scotch. That was the general release, the non-committee release. That sold for $110. Then what's interesting is what I'm going to talk about here with the Ardbeg. So it seems like there's a lot of interest in the Ardbeg committee releases. For sake of argument, they fetched a premium, but not a crazy premium in my opinion. But there was also an Ardbeg Treban Ardbeg 19 batch 1, and that only fetched $250, which is below retail. Okay. Then there was the Ardbeg 20-something range, which there was an Ardbeg 22, which sold for $400, which is below retail. Ardbeg 23-year-old, that sold for $500, which is below retail. And when I say below retail prices from 2 or 3 years ago, when they were first released. And if I say below retail, so just so I don't get any arguments, we'll say below or at retail for those 2. So what I found interesting, really, the Ardbeg 19, the Ardbeg 22, and the Ardbeg 23 sold at or below retail, whereas there was a high demand for the committee releases, which kind of demonstrates to me that people are kind of into those high marketed gimmicky Ardbegs as opposed to the legitimate higher quality. So really, I mean, for the Ardbeg 19-year-old, right, sold for $250, but all the other committee releases sold for $250. So, and those are mostly not age statement, with the exception of the newest Fermutation, which is 13 years old. So I found that very interesting. Okay, there was a Daftmill 2007 winter release. That sold for $180. You can buy that if you go online. The retail for that is around $220, $230 in the United States. Okay, so that sold for well below retail. And then there was a set of 3 Glenallachie 10 cask strength. There was batch 1, batch 2, and batch 3. Okay, sold as a set for $225, which is about retail. Okay, but good luck trying to find any of those. on retail. You won't. So that was, a relative bargain, really. There was a lot of 2 Glendronach 18-year-olds. Both the bottles were from 2019, which are highly coveted. They are speculated and widely believed to hold 24-year-old juice in those bottles. So the set of 2 Glendronach 18s sold for $300. So that's $150 per bottle. In my area, those bottles retail for about $170, but you can't find the 2019 anymore. So again, a relative bargain, right, in comparison. Then there was, on the bourbon end, there was a couple of Colonel E.H. Taylors. There was a 2-batch set. There was a small batch and a single barrel. Combined, those sold for $225. That's more than double the original retail price. That's in the bourbon category. There were 3 Henry McKennas, 10-year-olds, from 2019. 3 different single barrels. The retail in 2019 in those 3 bottles combined was about $100 for all 3 bottles. They sold for $225. So that's more than double retail. Okay, now then there was a set of 3 Octomores. There was a 9.1, a 9.3, and 11.1 sold as a 3-piece set. That realized $475. Not too bad considering the market for Octomores. You're probably going to pay over $200 a bottle in the United States. So that was a relative bargain. Then there was also a Springbank Hazelburn 14-year-old that sold for $150. Kilkerran 8. There was 2 different Kilkerran 8s. There was the highly coveted 57.1% ABV. That sold for $160. The Kilkerran 8, 56.9%, that sold for $130. There was a Lagavulin 12 Cask Strength 2020 release, special release. That sold for $170. The retail on that, you can't even find those anymore, but the retail on that was about $150, maybe $160. So that wasn't too bad considering, There was a Long Row Red, Long Row 13-year-old Red. That sold for $160. Again, that's about retail-ish if you can find it. Then we get to the heavy hitters. I saved the best for last, okay? There were 3 Springbanks in there that I took note of, okay? There was a Springbank local barley. I believe it was 2016 or 2017, okay? That sold for $700. So that's a considerable increase. There was a Springbank 21, a 2019 Springbank 21 that sold for $850. So you just compare those two. So a Springbank 10 local barley sold for $700, whereas the Springbank 21 for $150 more, you get a 21-year-old. So the Springbank 10s back then were retailing like in the $120, $130, $140 range, maybe $150. The Springbank 21s, the 2019 was retailing anywhere in the mid to upper 300s to the mid to upper 400s. So that one's more than doubled. And then there was a Springbank 12 Cask Strength, and that sold for $250. And the normal retail on that just a year ago was around, in my area, was around $110. So that's more than doubled. So anyway, I thought some of that was, hope you found some of that interesting and relevant. And that's really all I have to say about it. And I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Consider becoming a Patreon with the link in the description below. And remember, folks, no matter how good it is or how much it costs, it's just whiskey, folks. Hats off to you all, and take care.